This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo.
Welcome to INCRadio, South Central State Satellite Studio. We thank you for joining us here this morning. We got beautiful weather across South Central State. It's not as hot as it was last year. And I'll be your host. I'll be your tech. I'll be your audio. I'll be your camera person. I'll be everybody today, except for the guests. And our guest here today, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, it's Arnie again here in Fort Worth. And yes, it is actually a nice day because we're not hitting 100 today.
I can agree to that. And today we're going to actually talk about living with diabetes. So down in the chat, if you also have health issues, major health issues that cause you to make some adjustments to your life, you could feel free to share that with us. Of course, you don't have to. Of course, we're trying to do this to kind of say that not necessarily that health restrictions or illnesses can restrict you from living a full life. But go ahead and drop we'll go ahead and drop the question of the day in the chat. Oh, we did already, did we?
Yes, I did.
All right, so we're all set to start. So I guess we'll go ahead and begin with our first question. And wait. Before that, we have to make a disclaimer. We are not medical professionals in any way. So
no. We're just living with a condition. That's all it is.
Just follow our advice with a grain of salt or sugar in this case.
I wish.
But basically, what is diabetes? Let's start there.
So diabetes is when the insulin that your body, either your body doesn't produce enough of the insulin or it doesn't effectively use the insulin that your body produces. And insulin is the hormone that regulates your blood glucose or your blood sugar.
Okay. And there's two types of diabetes, correct?
Yeah, there's type 1 and type 2. I have type 2, and type 2 is one of those that is I am assuming is reversible or something that you could actually live with. With type 1, I notice it's with those who's had it like either since they were born or since they were a kid. And that one I'm not sure, but from what my doctors had said, that one is like once you have the type 1, you're going to have it.
Right, for life.
Yeah. Basically. So with type 2, there are times where even though you're diagnosed with diabetes, depending on the levels of your blood sugar and your A1C levels and all that stuff, then they can say, okay, you're pretty good. It's not active, I guess. So.
And I guess you're just more of a, I don't want to say expert, but experienced with the type 2.
Yes.
So what goes on with that?
What do you mean what goes on?
What goes on in your body whenever say you take in sugar?
See, first of all, I didn't even know I had diabetes because I didn't have any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was off. Like I keep eating sugar like I normally do. And it was nothing. And I know some people say they have different symptoms that comes along with diabetes. I've never had any of that stuff. That's why I didn't even know I had it until I went for my regular checkup, did the blood work, and then they said, hey, you're pre-diabetic. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, is there I don't know, I guess like a line where it's like, okay, you don't have it and now you do?
So the A1C level, it's when they take your blood work, that's one of the things they test for. They said anything over a certain number is not good. So like for me, if it was under, I can't remember, it's like under 5 or something, it's okay. But anything over that is when technically you have diabetes.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's still kind of a gray area. There's not really a.
Yeah. And like I said, your A1C can fluctuate depending on what you do with your diet and exercise. If you don't do anything, it's going to stay high, and then that's when usually you have to take medication.
Right, right. And I think what kind of worries me is that, like, number one, I barely go to the doctor.
Yeah.
It's been years since I've been to a doctor, but there was one time when I went hiking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And typically I stay away from sugar like completely.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, hey, I'm hiking, it's intense, I need the calories, so I would bring bags of candy with me and consume that. And in one hike, 8 miles into Utah, I started feeling really, really sick. Just to describe the symptoms, it was like I was kind of nauseated, a little bit dizzy, and my motivation dropped down to like zero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this was into the hike, and I was able to hike off the mountain okay. But then it felt like it took a week before like any motivation came back into my body. I mean, I literally felt like I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay around all day,
But you're not even diabetic.
as far as I know. I mean, I don't have any like day-to-day problems, or maybe I do. I don't know. But I stay away from sugar like completely, and I don't really have, as far as I know, like blood sugar spikes or anything, or where I feel like I have like really low blood sugar.
See, that's my problem because I love sweets, whether it's chocolates, dessert, ice cream, I love sweets. And so when they first told me I was pre-diabetic, they said, okay, you got to make a few changes here and there. And I made the changes. And then when they finally said, okay, now you have diabetes, I'm like, no, no.
See, believe me, I do love sweets. In fact, uh, let's see, when I was in my mid 20s, about I made this chocolate cake. You got to hear the ingredients. So it's a chocolate cake mix. Oh, you'll like this too because you're into like cooking and baking. But chocolate cake mix, instead of milk, I use chocolate milk. And I added chocolate pudding mix into the cake.
Okay.
It had chocolate frosting, of
Mm-hmm.
course. Um, I had the chocolate sandwich cookies. You'd be familiar
Mm-hmm.
with the actual brand name. Chocolate chips sprinkled in and out of it. I mean, there was just so much chocolate in this, and it was amazing. It gave you a headache if you ate it from all the sugar. But believe you me, I do love sugar. But just at some point, uh, I think in my later 20s, and like I did develop like liver problems probably because of the sugar,
Uh-huh.
because I ended up having like a really fatty liver, and I had to make some lifestyle changes, notably cutting out most of my sugar, which is where I'm at now. But yeah, I mean, sugar is really addictive.
It is. And like I said, usually when I have this favorite chocolate, and every time I just have one piece, I say, okay, I'm just gonna have one piece and that's it. But then after a while, you're there grabbing another one and then another one. And by the time the whole 1 pound box is gone.
And what's bad is like the some news every now and then they'll put out that article like chocolate's actually good for your heart, but it's like it has to be that 90% super dark stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't like dark chocolate. I honestly prefer milk chocolate, and then my second choice would be white chocolate. But the dark, I cannot eat the dark.
So, and if you think about it, like chocolate by itself does not have any sugar in it. Okay, and it tastes like dirt
Hmm.
basically. You ever make your own chocolate?
No, no.
Oh, you got to try it. You got to try it. So like you get like the cocoa powder, you melt it. If you want to avoid sugar, because like milk has some sugar in it, not a
Hmm.
whole lot. You can use heavy cream.
Hmm.
I've used that. And you melt them together. You sweeten it with artificial sweeteners, which may go down a different health hazard of artificial sweeteners. Although I think a lot of that's unproven. I hope so because I think I consume way too many artificial sugars. But and then you pour it kind of like in a mold,
Hmm.
and then you can stick it in the fridge and it'll harden and it'll form chocolate. I found what also helps is using coconut oil,
Yes.
because when you cool off coconut oil, it definitely solidifies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
whenever I make my chocolate dip strawberries, that's what I use as a coconut oil.
Oh, there you
And then
go.
that way so it's nice and smooth for when you need to dip the strawberries, and then all of a sudden it does get pretty hard.
Yeah, that might be a fun show in the future, like making our own chocolate.
Oh, we should try that, and then I'll bring some strawberries to dip in it.
All right. So now, did we already talked about when you found out you had diabetes? It wasn't too
No,
long
so
ago.
it was I found out at, I think it was like 2016, 2017 is when I
Mhm.
found out I was I think 2016 was when I found out I was pre-diabetic. And then
Okay.
so, I did what I was supposed to do, and then after a while, sometimes when I go on certain trips, everything goes out the door because of all the stuff that you can consume. And so then 2017, I want to say 2017 was when they said, hey, okay, now you have full on diabetes, so I need to go ahead and prescribe you some medication. And I mean, I don't have anything against medication, but I try not to take it as much as,
Right.
if I don't have to, I will try to avoid it.
Right.
And
Right.
so I said, no, I go, what can I do? And they said, okay, right now your A1C level is like at a 8.4, which that is full on diabetes. And I said, okay, so what can I do to not take medication? And they said, well, if we can get your A1C level down to like a 5, 6, then you'll be okay. And I was like, okay. So then I said, he goes, you have to change your lifestyle, you got to change your diet and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, sure, it'll be easy, no big deal. So I said, okay, I agreed to it. And so we made a deal that for the 3 months, I would try to do lifestyle changes, and that way I could avoid medication.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. So for the next 3 months, I searched different things, alternative things that you can do when you have diabetes and everything, and, made a list of everything. And so I also met with a nutritionist
Mhm.
who was telling me, and she gave me all these charts and all these pictures of different things that you should avoid or what you should have less of. And then that way you could still eat the things that you like to eat. And so I did that. And then I actually did make the changes that they had requested, because 3 months later, when I came back, my A1C was down to a 5, which is really good.
And real quick, what is A1C?
I don't know. They just tell me what it
It's a
is.
number.
It's just a number. And it's just, like I said, it's just something that they find in your blood work when they do that.
Is that like the number one indicator if you have type 2 diabetes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they said anything below like a 5.7,
Mm-hmm.
5, it's technically normal. Anything between like 5.7 to 6 point something is when you're diabetic. Pre-diabetes.
Does that number do they measure that like in your standard like physicals that you have?
Yes. So usually when you get your blood work,
Right.
they test for that and cholesterol and all those things. So that's one of the things that's in the normal, like when you go for a physical, that's something
Okay.
that they look for on a regular basis.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I definitely have high cholesterol, but of all the things that I've done to lower it was just losing weight.
Yeah.
It's like directly tied to whatever my weight is. My weight's high, so is my cholesterol. My weight's low, it goes down.
Well, with diabetes too, I've noticed that, because, so like I said, when I first found out, I was working at the airport. And so
Mhm.
it was not an issue because I was walking around all the time. I didn't have to actually go and extra walking. So I was
Mhm.
walking around a lot, and then I changed my diet. So I did lose weight. And then when I went to go get tested, like I said, it had gone down.
Okay. Excuse me. So I want to know though, like when you receive the news that you
Mm-hmm.
have diabetes, is
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those major things. So I know when I received news that like I had issues with my liver and then a whole bunch of other stuff, it was like, especially when you're in your kind of early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like, oh no, the medical bills. I'm like, I'm not making a whole lot of money, and oh
Mm-hmm.
no, I got to make some major lifestyle changes. Otherwise, this could get a lot worse. So what was that feeling when you found out?
So when my doctor told me I was diabetic, I just started laughing, right? And he goes, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, I go, first of all, it can't be real, because one, like I said, I've never felt anything. I did not feel
Right,
like I
right.
was unhealthy in any way. And second of all, I said that can't be because I love dessert, I love sugar, I can't be diabetic.
Sugar loves me. Why wouldn't? Why
Yeah.
can't I love it?
And I was already in my 40s when I received the diagnosis, so it's not like I was young and like feeling like I would have missed out on stuff. I think because I've already experienced life, I guess it
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal. And and I think I was kind of prepared because I think it runs in the family. Everyone in my family
Mm.
has had diabetes, and so it is something that they've had to deal with. But with like my parents and my grandparents, when they had it, they did the traditional way. Once you get diagnosed, go ahead and just take the medication, and you'll be fine. And like I said, I wanted to go the non-traditional way because I did not want to take medication.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also the case with me. I'm not a big fan of taking medication. Like I remember after surgery, you take some pretty
Hmm.
potent pain medication, and I was always trying to like, okay, let me see if I can go without it.
Yeah.
And typically I'd find out like, no, the answer is no. I need the medication, give it to me. And then I would have to wait like in agony for like 20 minutes for it to kick in. But yeah, I'm like you. I don't like, what's the natural way? What can I change naturally so I can avoid taking medicine?
Yeah. And so, yeah. So, like I said, for the longest time, I did not have to take medication because um, working at the airport, I'm walking a lot. And then I made a lot of changes. One of the things that they said you had to limit was your carb intake.
Okay.
And so when we're talking about carbs, it's not necessarily just sugar, because I'm
Hmm.
thinking diabetes is sugar and that's it. And so after doing a lot of research, I learned that it's not just about the sugar, it's also about the carbs. So then I had to limit, your rice intake, your
Right.
breads, your pasta. The rice was fine. I was already at the point where I wasn't eating rice too much. But I did love breads and I love pasta. Like everything I would cook had pasta in it. And so that was a few things I had to change. And they said, well, you could do like the wheat pasta or the um, other ones made out of beans or whatever.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, it did not taste good. I tried it just to try it, but I'm saying, if I'm gonna have pasta, it's gonna be the real pasta.
Right. Right.
And you can have pasta. The only thing is you have to measure it. So I was at a point where I was measuring it. They said you could have like a fourth cup of cooked pasta. So I would get my measuring cup and I said, okay, this is kind of small. Oh no, 1 cup. And I looked at it as like kind of small, but I stuck my pasta in there, whatever could fit, stuck that on the plate, and that's all I ate.
See, and like low carb is my main diet now, just over the years. That's just what I figured out works best for me. Excuse me. And the discipline I have, like I don't eat any pasta, but I will try it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take like one bite of it, and
Yeah.
I feel like that would be pretty harmless. But one thing that's interesting about like you said with the carbs is that they affect your blood sugar differently
Yes.
from when I was researching it,
Mm-hmm.
because I was concerned about like blood sugar,
Mm-hmm.
and that like things like wheat bread actually spike your blood sugar more than regular white bread.
Yes. Yeah. And so, and like I said, the other thing I had to do was read labels.
Right.
Okay. So I'm looking at how much carbs because for my thing was uh, 30 carbs per meal and then 15 grams of carbs per snack. And so with diabetes, I said I had to eat more often, but smaller portions as opposed to just having like 1 or 2 meals a day. So
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that. I was having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, having snacks in between, but I would watch what type of snacks. Now, the one thing that really got me, besides the whole chocolate thing, was fruits, because there are some fruits that are very high in sugar
Oh yeah,
that affect
absolutely.
my blood sugar. But like berries, you can have as much berries as you want, and it's okay. So I
Right.
started doing the strawberries, the blueberries, and all. Mango's my favorite fruit. And then what I did when I first started was when I would eat something, I would have to wait 2 hours before I eat anything else, and then I would test my blood sugar.
Right.
And then if it spiked, then I'm like, okay, I can't have this, or I got to have very little of it. And if it didn't spike, I was like, oh look, I can have as much of this as I want. And so that's what I was doing. And I kept a journal of all the foods I ate. And so I would keep a journal and then I would write down what my blood sugar level was. And then after that, I would realize, oh, look, I could have everything that I had except for this one thing. If
Right.
if I had a meal and my blood sugar went really high, I would have the same meal, but I would take out one of the things that I originally ate. just to see which one affected my blood sugar. And so I started to learn how, to change things and not eat pasta, even though I loved it. So, like, I love lasagna. Lasagna is like one of my favorite things to
Yep.
cook.
It's just
You
layers
know,
of carbs.
it is. But when I was doing my research, they said use butternut squash. So what I did was I bought the butternut squash. I sliced it really thinly, like layers of pasta,
Hmm.
and that's what I use as layers of pasta. So I still
Okay.
had all the meat I wanted. I still had all the cheeses and all that. Um, and I cooked it. And oh my gosh, first of all, it tasted good. I didn't think it would, but it tasted good. And then when I tested my blood sugar, it was really low. So I'm like, okay, so this is something I could have. And so things like that, you have to experiment and see what you can and cannot have.
Right. You ever try spaghetti squash?
I did.
That one's really cool.
I didn't like it though.
You didn't like it?
I
Okay. For
didn't.
those that don't know, spaghetti squash, it's a squash.
Yes.
And the way you prepare it, you basically just like slice it open, you stick it in your oven
Hmm.
and you bake it.
Yeah.
And then when you fork it out, it comes out like noodles.
Yes. And it really does. I don't know. That just did not.
You didn't like the
No,
flavor.
like I did my regular pastas, like I mean sauces that I would with spaghetti, and I mean it was okay, but the butternut squash I'm okay with.
Yeah.
The spaghetti squash I didn't care for too much.
I don't know. I avoid pasta like completely
I
nowadays.
know, but because I don't cook a lot of Filipino food. Because for me,
Yeah.
I like Filipino food. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I like the other stuff. I like American food and Italian food and all that, and so that's why I did a lot
And
of pastas.
and I laugh because a lot of Filipino foods like, hey, let's take these carbs and deep fry it and then
Uh-huh.
coat it in sugar.
Yes, and that's one thing. Like I was already used to not eating rice, so even if I did make Filipino dishes,
Right.
I could have it without
Yeah,
rice.
rice is deadly.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so good.
And
With everything too.
it is. And the thing was because I had tested it, like I had just a little rice because there's one Filipino dish,
Hmm.
kare kare, which is the peanut butter based,
Yes,
which is
yes.
one of my favorites. That one I cannot have without rice. That one I really have to have rice with. And so
I've had it without rice.
nah, nah.
It's when you don't do rice on anything, everything
Uh-huh.
is just a whole lot richer.
Yeah. So then I measured the rice. I did what I was supposed to eat, and it still spiked my blood sugar. But then, like I said, with
Okay.
pasta, if I only had the 1 cup, my
Hmm.
blood sugar was okay. And so I just had to learn to only have 1 cup of pasta and not anymore. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So,
And like the day-to-day changes you have to make, especially as you get older. I'm finding
mhm,
like when you get older, like your body just does not handle food. It seems like children
mhm,
these days, they can just live off of like candy and cereal. Cereal's like
mhm.
probably the worst thing you can eat
Yep.
for if you have diabetic because it's literally just carbs coated in sugar. And that was one thing I had to change.
Hmm.
Like I got rid of all the cereal and just switched to like meat and eggs
Yeah.
for breakfast or like just completely non-traditional. Like I'll eat steak for breakfast. I'm like, it's food. Like, what does it matter? It doesn't have to
Exactly.
be this or that.
Like I would have pizza for breakfast, which like who has pizza for breakfast, right? And it's not cold pizza either. And that's another thing. I love pizza, and that crust has got so much carbs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Technically you're supposed to avoid pizza, and so I tried different things. I tried making pizza crust with zucchini, which was
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
just a lot of work.
You ever do the zucchini pasta or you slice it up?
I haven't tried that one, which I should, but I haven't because I don't have that spiral
It
thing to make it.
Yeah, I have one and it's decent.
And
Yeah.
see, I think I wouldn't mind because I love zucchini.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I did it for the pizza crust. It was just a lot of work because zucchini is very wet.
Yes.
And so you had to like squish it and then you had to bake it and then you had to make sure it was dried before you could actually use it as a crust so that it doesn't fall
Mm.
apart. So I
Yeah, yeah,
tried
yeah.
that one and that crust was pretty good. Like I said, it was just a lot of work. I tried the cauliflower crust. I did not care for
No,
it too much,
me
so
neither.
I stopped that. But then I started doing it with almond flour,
Hmm.
which was okay too. It's not as heavy as your regular flour crust,
Right,
but it
right.
still works. But I think my most favorite one was when I used coconut flour.
Okay.
So I used coconut flour to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
the
yeah.
crust.
I find that coconut flour doesn't really bond together very well. What do you do?
I think it's with the cheeses and the eggs, it works out well.
Okay.
But
Oh, you mix eggs and cheese in it.
yeah,
Did- What kind
with
of
the
cheese do
crust.
you use?
Um, mozzarella.
Mozzarella, and that
Yeah.
kind of when it bakes, it kind of holds it all together.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to try that.
And so I did the coconut flour. So it had kind of like a coconut taste,
Yeah.
but it was good. I mean, it's not overpowering like if you ate fresh coconut, but it still had
Yeah.
kind of a sweet taste. And so I had like kind of a sweet savory pizza.
Right.
But once I did that coconut one, because like I said, you can put now the sauce you still have to limit because tomato technically is not that good for you when you have diabetes. But I put so much cheese on there, like more than any pizza parlor would give you, right?
Yeah.
I mean that thing was covered in pepperoni. It wasn't even like a few drops of pepperoni. I had pepperoni everywhere. And I know
Yeah.
people are probably gonna gross out, but yes, I do put pineapple in my pizza.
Hold on.
Now, hold on.
I don't. Hold no. I don't have a problem with pineapple on pizza, but pineapple and pepperoni.
Yeah, I do pineapple pepperoni, pineapple Canadian bacon, pineapple sausage. I will do pineapple with whatever.
I could do pineapple with the ham, the Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
It's not Canadian bacon; it's ham.
Well, that's what they call it.
But yeah, but the pepperoni and pineapple, no, that you're talking about war
Yeah,
crimes already.
no, that is so good. But now the thing was, I had to limit the pineapple because pineapple,
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
sugar is not good for me. So then I did that, and after having that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good. But now when I go to like pizza places and have pizza, I'll
Mhm.
take like a bite of the crust, and then the rest I could just eat all the toppings
Yeah,
because I can't do the
I
crust.
typically just eat toppings, but it looks very wasteful. It's not a good look.
It is, but you know what? You're only wasting flour, is what I look at it.
Yeah,
You know, you're
yeah.
eating the meats, which is what's expensive, and the veggies and all that. But what's expensive is that stuff.
Right.
The crust, no, that's the cheap stuff. So that's why we get rid of it.
You know what I noticed too is when I switch my diet over to low carb, no sugar, I don't get as hungry as often because and you hear that advice like you should be eating like every 2 hours, like
Mm-hmm.
small amounts. And I
Mm-hmm.
found out it's because like within those 2 hours, your sugars have been like digested and
Mm-hmm.
already run through your body.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to constantly eat. And I noticed that like when I went low carb, like, oh, I don't really get those hunger pangs like I used to.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I didn't get as hungry. But I think it was like sometimes it was like psychological where
Hmm.
okay, you know, you didn't eat the stuff that you really wanted, so now you're trying to crave for more kind of a thing.
Right.
So it worked out both ways, I guess. If I wasn't thinking about it,
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
I didn't realize it. But when you see the food right in front of you, then that's a whole nother story. So yeah.
We got a comment from Jane. She says a great topic. And she was pre-diabetic, so she changed her eating habits when she found out. And she doesn't have a sweet tooth, and her big no-no is rice. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, I don't miss rice like a lot of people do.
Oh, I miss rice.
Not me. Like I'll have it every once in a while because I love to make sushi. So I
Right.
will have, but I will make sure that the layer of rice is very thin and not thick like they would have at a sushi
Right.
bar. So I would make it as thin as possible so that I still had some rice, but then not so much.
Yeah.
And then I learned how to make sushi bowls so that you could have all the stuff without any of the rice.
And I've had no rice sushi, and it just wasn't good.
Yeah, see, no, that's why I'll still have it. I will just limit what I have.
You ever mess with protein powders at all?
No, no,
So I got a good one for you. Do you like pancakes?
I do.
Okay, you'll like this one. You buy a protein powder, and unfortunately, protein powder is expensive,
It's very expensive.
and not all of it makes good pancakes.
Uh-huh.
So I might have to recommend one if you're ever interested. But you just take the protein powder and you mix it with eggs, and then you just fry it like that, and it makes pancakes.
Oh wow.
And typically, you have like vanilla protein powder,
Yeah.
and you make vanilla pancakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for the syrup, because syrup that's just pure sugar. I melt butter
Mm-hmm.
and maple extract to get the flavor, and then artificial sweetener, and that and maybe some cinnamon, and that'll be the quote unquote syrup, which in my opinion is better. Like butter is like
Yeah.
amazing, especially if you sweeten it a little bit.
Butter with everything is good.
Yeah.
But I did find they do have sugar-free syrup. And I
Yes,
use it.
it's hit or miss for me.
It is. I found a brand that I liked, and it's not too bad. It works well with the pancake, and then also with the pancake batter that I use. I found this thing. It's keto friendly.
Hmm.
And so with the keto friendly flours that they have out there, I'm
Right.
able to make pancake, and that was pretty good. I do have to add a bunch of cinnamon to give it like some kind of flavor,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
do that.
And typically those will have like almond flour in them, and
Yes.
all almond flour is they just grind at
Yeah.
almonds. That is it.
Hmm.
So it's it has it kind of endows the nutty flavor to it, which is good for
Hmm.
some baking recipes to have that nutty
Yes.
flavor. So in some ways, like almond flour is better than like regular flour for some things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I found it was okay. I just, sometimes the real flour just tastes better, but
Right.
you just have to find the alternatives and see what works. The only thing I did notice that I was not happy with is when you're trying to have all these alternative ingredients,
Hmm.
it costs more than the stuff that's bad for you.
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know
definitely.
and so when I went grocery, I like, if I try to find bread, there's this one bread that I found that I can have on a regular basis and it would not spike my blood sugar, but it's like double the price of a regular white loaf of bread.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm gonna go broke. I'm gonna like die from being broke because all this stuff is so expensive. And one thing that my dietitian did say, and I noticed, which is kind of true, when you go into the grocery store, she says you only shop around the perimeter.
Yep, that's
You
where all the fresh items
you do
are.
not shop in the aisles because that's where all the preservatives are and everything. So I was like,
Right.
okay, sure, whatever. So I tried it. I went around the perimeter. First, you get your veggies, which is all your good stuff, right?
Yep.
And then you got all your seafoods, your meats, and then, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of true.
Yep. And then the dairy section. Dairy's a whole other
Yeah.
animal
Yeah.
we could talk about. But yeah.
And then
Let's
I
see.
found myself
Yep.
taking more vitamins too. I
Okay.
I was reading a lot, and they said the cinnamon vitamins, if you take
Hmm.
those really help with your blood sugar. And I did. So you just take it 2 times a day, and it really helped my numbers. And then the one thing I did notice is because when my doctor said, well, now you got to exercise more. And I'm like, wait, that's a bad word, right? Because who likes to exercise except for my nephew who does it as a ritual? But I'm not all about that exercise. So then he says, if you exercise, then that's going to kind of help it where you don't really have to deprive yourself of certain things. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. So my sisters and I went to Yosemite,
Hmm.
and we did a lot of hikes over there. And these were not like your 10-minute hikes. I mean, these were your hikes that went on for hours, and it's going uphill, and downhill and all. And so when I do those hikes, I don't like to have anything on me because
Yeah.
my weight is enough to bring up the mountain. I don't want to be carrying anything else, right? So all my sisters have all their backpacks, and the snacks they made for the hike was spamasubi.
Hmm.
And if you know what spamasubi is, it has a lot of rice.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah. Is
like,
that the one with oh, it says spam with food.
spam,
Yeah, go ahead,
right,
continue on.
rice, and then the seaweed. And so I'm like, I love spamasubi, but I know that's something I can't have because of all the rice.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, well, I have no choice because this is the only snacks they brought. And, I was getting hungry during the hike. So I ate like 3 pieces of spamasubi, which I should not have done. But then after the hike, I tested my blood sugar and it did not affect it in any way. And so I'm thinking, okay, I guess really if I do walk, then I could kind of eat the stuff that I want.
Right. Right.
And I guess that's what equals it out. So that's what we did. And then also when I went to Italy with my nephew, same thing. We were walking around all over the city where it was okay for me to have gelato and it was okay for me to have pastas
Yes.
because I was walking all day long. And so that's why I love going to Europe. I know you're not really too keen on it, but I love going to Europe because I can eat whatever I want because I'm walking around and it doesn't affect my blood sugar.
And you bring a good point too about Europe, because I know the primary sugar here in the United States is high fructose corn syrup.
Mhm.
Whereas in other countries, like even if you just go to Mexico,
Mhm.
they use regular sugar in
Natural
their
sugar.
drinks, right?
Mhm.
Because they're processed differently in the body. From what I read, high fructose corn syrup has to be processed by your liver first, which is probably why I got liver problems. All the high fructose syrup I was consuming, but and in Europe in general, they're skinnier.
Yeah.
And not to go down any like rabbit holes, but there is a difference between the sugars.
Mhm.
The same thing with when you brought up with like fruit.
Mhm.
Fruit in general is like, hey, it's healthy. Now, talk about like fruit juice.
Yeah.
Right. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
If you were to squeeze an orange into a cup, it is very little juice you get out of it. So if you're drinking a full glass of orange juice, what is that, like 10 oranges you're consuming at once?
Yeah.
So yeah, you really got to pay attention to the amount of sugar that you end up eating.
And it's true though, because every time I went to Italy and we stayed at different hotels and they had the breakfast, whenever they said, "Do you want orange juice?" I'd say yes. They had that machine that was squeezing the oranges, so it wasn't the concentrated that we have here in the States. And that's what I like. And like you said, in Europe, a lot of people tend to be thinner because, and I watch these people. They eat more than I do, but they have, it's their lifestyle. And so that's what I noticed. And so I decided, okay, let me make the changes. And I did really well for, I want to say, 5 years. I think I went without taking any type of medications because I was keeping my blood sugar down.
Yep. Oh, and Jane agrees with you. She said the Europe lifestyle is so much healthier. Yeah. She also says that she fills up with vegetables first to go with her protein.
Yeah.
So then she's not looking for rice as much.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I said, I don't crave the rice. But I do. It looks I've been eating more protein than I had before. But you know, for me, my protein is seafood because I love seafood. I'm not really into the meats. But I've noticed now I ate more bacon than I used to before.
Yeah.
Because, you know, hey, they said you need some meat. So bacon is a meat that I enjoy. So I'll do that.
Right. And they seem to keep going back and forth on like eggs are healthy. Eggs will kill you.
Yeah.
You know, meat is healthy. Meat will kill you. Yeah. From what I've seen, it depends on how you prepare the meat. If you're breading and frying it, then it's not good for you. But if you eat just, you know, plain meat, you know, you grill it. You don't put any sugars or sauces on it. Sauces will get you too.
Yes.
Sauces can be deceiving. There can be a lot of sugar in sauces. You got to pay attention to that. But yeah, and also the quality of the meat, because I found out there's a grass-fed meat and corn-fed meat, and you get two completely different like nutritional facts from one and the other. Even like the omega-3s are much different between the two. Of course, the more expensive one's going to be the healthier one.
Of course, that's how it is, and that's what. And you know, I used to, prior to my job at the airport, I used to work for a medical company, and that was a whole thing about obesity is because of the way the foods are processed here compared to other countries. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to the Philippines, but if you ever go to their markets, their meat's just hanging there. It's not refrigerated. It's not in the freezer. It is just hanging there, and I'm like, hold on, is that good meat? Because it's just out in the open, but you know, they don't put all the stuff that we put here. So that makes a difference.
And if it didn't work, I mean, they wouldn't still be doing it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And then one of the other changes I did make that was different was I try to stay away from fried foods. And so air fryer works wonders.
Yes.
I've had fried chicken in an air fryer that is as crispy and juicy like you would if you fried it. And I'm like, okay, this works. And so just learning the different things of what you can do to make changes, it really helps so that you don't have to, you know, go on medication.
When you bring up frying, I found out it's like the oil too. Like not all cooking fats are the same. Like avocado oil, olive oil is like good for you.
And
by
more
the way,
expensive.
More expensive, yes, but you know, you're gonna have to pay for that in one way or the other. Medical bills, or you know, when you consume it. Like for eggs, avocado oil works great.
See, I've never tried cooking with avocado oil.
Yeah, you should give it a try. It's definitely difficult finding a cheap one though.
Yeah, I've cooked with olive oil, which is okay too. But like I said, sometimes when you're on a budget, you can't afford all those expensive stuff, all the good stuff.
Right.
So I do get it when I go to Italy because it is much cheaper over there.
Yeah, I cook in like pure lard. I'm old school. But if you think about it though, they used to cook everything in lard, and everyone was skinny back in the day. So I think there's something to that.
It's because of their lifestyle. They didn't have cars. They were walking around everywhere, right? They weren't and they weren't sedentary. They didn't have a TV to watch and sit in front of. You know, they were actually doing things. But
the lard helps the blood flow through the arteries, right? All right, that is the end of our show. You have any shout outs you'd like to give?
Shout out to my sister Peachy because she had diabetes before I did, so I learned a lot from her. And then, of course, to Trevor Riley, because, he's a workout geek.
And I'd like to shout out, people over the years who've disclosed to me, because it is, it's very intimate information, that they're going through any kind of medical things. And I'm actually inspired because, like, despite what may be something that holds you back, you don't let it hold you back. You just figure out how to power through and
Yeah,
just live with it. So
exactly.
hopefully everyone gets a little bit of that today. So we thank everybody for joining us here today. We'd like to thank our CFO coordinator and SEPC president, Brother Angelo Arano V. Manalo, and of course our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. I don't know if we'll be here next week. So
I don't know what's going on next week,
yeah.
but tune in. Something will be on.
Yeah, something will be on.
It'll be live, maybe from other studios. We don't know yet.
Right, because I got to go down to Houston. So maybe
Yeah.
we'll do a travel segment on that. But go ahead and have a good day, and we'll see you later.